Funding for New York Now is provided by WNET. Additional funding provided by the Leo Cox Beach Philanthropic Foundation.
It's in my blood to get out there and help my community. It's here. Knowing that someone needs something done in the community and you're there to help them, it makes you feel really good. I'm very proud of the job that I do in my community.
Winner of a New York State Emmy for Best Political Program. This is New York Now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to New York Now. I'm Matt Ryan. My partner from the Times-Union, Casey Seiler, is headed back from the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia and will rejoin us next week. Well, it's now official. We have our November matchup all set. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are now the official nominees of their respective parties. We analyzed the GOP and their New York nominee last week. This week, we do the same on the Democratic side, where Chappaqua Hillary Clinton became the first woman to ever win a major party's nomination. Josefa Velasquez of Politico New York and John Campbell of Gannett will join me at the Reporters Roundtable to analyze the week in Philly. But first, let's take a listen to what the former First Lady had to say Thursday night.
My friends, it is with humility, determination, and boundless confidence in America's promise that I accept your nomination for President of the United States. Don't let anyone tell you that our country is weak. We're not. Don't let anyone tell you we don't have what it takes. We do. And most of all, don't believe anyone who says, I alone can fix it. Yes, those were actually Donald Trump's words in Cleveland. And they should set off alarm bells for all of us. Really? I alone can fix it? Isn't he forgetting troops on the front lines, police officers and firefighters who run toward danger, doctors and nurses who care for us, teachers who change lives, entrepreneurs who see possibilities in every problem, mothers who lost children to violence and are building a movement to keep other kids safe? He's forgetting every last one of us. Americans don't say, I alone can fix it. We say, we'll fix it together. Now, sometimes the people at this podium are new to the national stage. As you know, I'm not one of those people. I've been your First Lady, served 8 years as a senator from the great state of New York. Then I represented all of you as Secretary of State. But my job titles only tell you what I've done. They don't tell you why. The truth is, through all these years of public service, the service part has always come easier to me than the public part. I get it, that some people just don't know what to make of me. So, let me tell you, the family I'm from, well, no one had their name on big buildings. My family were builders of a different kind. Builders in the way most American families are. They used whatever tools they had, whatever God gave them, and whatever life in America provided, and built better lives and better futures for their kids. My grandfather worked in the same Scranton lace mill for 50 years. You heard from Republicans and independents who are supporting our campaign. Well, I will be a president for Democrats, Republicans, independents, for the struggling, the striving, the successful, for all those who vote for me and for those who don't, for all Americans together. Tonight, we've reached a milestone in our nation's march toward a more perfect union. The first time that a major party has nominated a woman for president. Standing here as my mother's daughter and my daughter's mother, I'm so happy this day has come. I'm happy for grandmothers and little girls and everyone in between. I'm happy for boys and men, because when any barrier falls in America, it clears the way for everyone. After all, when there are no ceilings, the sky's the limit. Enough with the bigotry and the bombast. Donald Trump's not offering real change. He's offering empty promises. And what are we offering? A bold agenda to improve the lives of people across our country, to keep you safe, to get you good jobs, to give your kids the opportunities they deserve. The choice is clear, my friends. Let's look to the future with courage and confidence. Let's build a better tomorrow for our beloved children and our beloved country. And when we do, America will be greater than ever. Thank you, and may God bless you and the United States of America.
All right, to analyze Hillary Clinton's speech and the week in general for the Democrats, we're happy to bring in Josefa Velasquez of Politico New York and John Campbell from Gannett. Let's start with the acceptance speech last night by the former U.S. Senator from New York. There was a lot of buildup during the week. We saw some, I think no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you'd have to agree there were some pretty compelling speeches. Michelle Obama, of course, Bill Clinton, Vice President Joe Biden gave a typical, a good speech. And then, of course, Barack Obama set the bar pretty high, and Hillary Clinton's gotten some criticism, you can call it fair or not, for her abilities when she's up there on the stage like that. John, you go first. What were your impressions last night?
It's a pretty difficult task to take the stage after all those people you mentioned who are widely recognized as very, very skilled public speakers. That being said, I mean, the speech we saw from Hillary Clinton was kind of a mix of her normal stump speech. You saw the lines about, if Donald Trump says I'm playing the woman card, then deal me in.
Right,
and
right.
You saw a lot of things that we've heard a lot of times over and over and over again on the stump. And she also mixed in, kind of what she wants to do in her first 100 days. And she promised a big focus on the economy, on creating jobs. And that's something that appeals quite a bit to middle-class voters and the Republican side. So, she had a very difficult task. And, some people were kind of surprised that she did include so much of her stump speech that she has, said so many times over and over again for the last year. But, you saw a mix of kind of those two things.
Josefa, what were your impressions?
Initially, I thought that Chelsea Clinton, just introducing her was great. It kind of softened her up and made her seem more human rather than this career politician her critics make her out to seem. I thought the speech, she did very well in it. I thought it was a historic moment, and you felt present in all of that. And she also talked a little bit more, I think, about her personal life and what her struggles have been like up to this point. She talked about her mother and her relationship with Bill in the White House. And I thought that was good to see a softer side of her throughout all of this.
That was really, I think, one of the challenges for the Clinton camp is, how do we kind of reintroduce this person who's been out in the public for decades and decades? And the video they showed beforehand, be honest, it made her seem like a regular person. She was in the kitchen. She was speaking in a very plain way. Her cadence in that interview, I thought, was pretty good compared to what we maybe see on the stage. And so I think they actually did a fairly good job of crafting that video and making her seem like almost reintroducing her, or to some people, introducing her.
Well, that's a challenge they have on the Democratic side. It's a challenge they have on the Republican side. I mean, both of these candidates have near 100% name recognition. I mean, they have been in the public eye for decades. And so how do you soften the image for Donald Trump? How do you soften the image for Hillary Clinton? And that's what we saw on the Democratic side with that video, with Chelsea Clinton telling entirely personal stories. With Bill Clinton, he spent the first 15 minutes of his speech talking about how they met and his 3 marriage proposals. I mean, it was 20 minutes into the speech before they were even married. Mm-hmm. So you did see quite an effort on that. I think the Democrats had one major advantage and one major disadvantage from going second among the two parties' political conventions. The advantage is they got to see the Republicans, what they said in Cleveland at the convention, which was the word that everybody's been using to describe Donald Trump's speech in particular was dark. And it was his whole thing is make America great again, and he played up the threat of ISIS and played on some of the fears that people have surrounding terrorism and the safety of the country. So you saw the Democrats were able to take that and try to paint a more optimistic tone. I mean, obviously that makes sense because there's a Democrat in the White House that they would try to do that. Mm-hmm. But the disadvantage, I think, is by the time you get to the end of that second week, I think a lot of people, reporters included, have kind of convention burnout, yes. I think. And, you have 2 straight weeks of major political speeches on the broadcast networks every night. And I think by the end of that, people get burned out. So I think that's kind of the disadvantage going second.
But one thing I noticed last night is the optics. I'm a television guy. The optics were very good. And like you said, they had a chance as they were the second party to go. So they got to see how the Republicans reacted. And I thought they did a pretty good job of you saw a lot of people on Twitter Thursday night talking about how, wait a minute, this patriotic message, this is something that we have had a hold on for all these years. I'm talking about Republicans like Joe Scarborough, and I saw a lot of that on Twitter Thursday night where people were saying that they've stolen our strong points all these years, especially patriotism, 9/11, the military. That really stood out to me.
And there was that speech by the parent of a man who is a Muslim born and was born overseas, who served in the military and sacrificed his life. That's something that the Republicans usually have a strong hold on, this sort of military and the military-industrial complex, and they play up to that. So it was interesting to see Hillary really grab that and use that speech and her position and her role in 9/11, something that we usually have seen Republicans play that up more. It was a welcome sight to see Democrats start talking about how much the military matters and what their role is in all this, considering, last week's speech with Donald Trump was just so dark. So to put things in perspective of like, this is where we've come from, this is what we were going to do. Here are all of the Muslims that served in the military. And I think that's part of the thing in Donald Trump and the Republicans that's really polarizing the party is Donald Trump's rhetoric on Muslims and immigrants in general and building a wall. And Hillary talked about, there was that speech with the parents of the man who died, and then she brought out a pretty bold immigration platform on giving people access to citizenship at some point.
That being said, there is some polarization within the Democratic Party too, and we saw that a lot this week with Bernie Sanders supporters who protested quite heavily and heckled at various speeches and booed even during the opening prayer at the mention of Hillary Clinton's name often, and the burn or bust folks who say that they're only supporting Bernie and they won't support Hillary. I think that is a minor faction of the Democratic Party, but it's a very vocal faction of the Democratic Party, and they certainly made their voice heard this week.
And your partner who was here last week, Joe Spector from Gannett, I was following him on Twitter Thursday night during Hillary Clinton's speech. And he mentioned that some of these protesters were out there, but if you were watching on TV and you weren't paying attention to social media, you probably wouldn't have even recognized it, because it seemed to me, watching or listening to Joe's tweets, that they did a pretty good job of drowning all of that out.
Well, and it was stronger in the beginning of the week and less strong toward the end of the week, which more people are watching toward the end of the week. So that makes a big difference too.
How about Michael Bloomberg? He came out, it was no surprise that he was going to support Hillary Clinton, but he came out and strongly against Donald Trump, calling him a dangerous demagogue. He even questioned his sanity. He said, let's select a sane, competent person. He came out swinging. I think the Trump camp was really surprised by that.
Right. That's someone who was a Republican turned independent, a businessman. For him to just say such strong things, I think would scare some of the business communities and people who lean a little towards the middle. But his speech was just incredible in the most Bloomberg way.
Yes.
He had glowing words, but they were Bloomberg-esque, sane, competent, which is just fun.
Plain spoken too, kind of like Joe Biden.
And I wasn't quite sure. It was kind of a surprise, because nearly every speaker who spoke, he may have been the only one who wasn't a registered Democrat speaking at the Democratic convention. So I wasn't sure quite what he was going to do beforehand. I thought maybe it would focus on gun control, given that he is a staunch gun control advocate. He has a PAC that supports candidates who support gun control or attacks candidates that don't. But he made a pitch to independent voters, which obviously are so important.
Huge.
In New York and throughout the nation. So that was his pitch, that was his role there, and he really focused on the independent voters.
I want to read you the first two tweets from Donald J. Trump on Friday morning. The media coverage this morning of the very average Clinton speech and convention is a joke. CNN and the little watched Morning Joe, which he's been on quite a bit. The second one, crooked Hillary Clinton made up facts about me and forgot to mention the many problems of our country in her very average scream. Are we going to reach a point, you think, where the constant criticism, the name calling, is going to turn voters off?
I don't know. It seems that his supporters are really enjoying how vocal he is and that he's not, following the political norms. So I'm not entirely sure. I think this is one of the presidential elections that's going to be left to Twitter, and it's going to be GIFs, and it's going to be like short little spurts of videos. So I think anytime you can call Hillary or crooked, it makes for a good soundbite.
Well, and the second tweet there where, Hillary didn't focus on the problems, that was the major difference between Donald Trump's speech the week before and Hillary Clinton's speech on Thursday night. Donald Trump focused almost exclusively on problems, which is why his, speech has been portrayed as dark.
Midnight in America, I believe, is how Hillary Clinton described it.
And Hillary Clinton, went for that more optimistic tone. So that analysis isn't wrong, so to speak. I mean, I wouldn't use the word crooked Hillary or anything like that, but he's right. But that was a strategic decision by the Hillary Clinton camp, and that was a strategic decision by the Donald Trump camp.
So let's talk about Andrew Cuomo, our governor here in the great state of New York. He had a pretty big presence down at the DNC on Wednesday and Thursday, talking to delegates in the morning. He had his speech Thursday night, not prime time. I think it was around 7:30, 7:40 when he took the stage. Before we get to anything with the delegates, what did you think of his speech, John? You have to mention, of course, he's following in the footsteps of his father, Mario, who is, arguably one of the greatest public speakers of the 20th century. With that in mind, how did he do you think?
I think he did all right. I mean, it wasn't when you go at 7:30. There's not a ton of people in the convention hall itself that are paying attention. I mean, I wasn't there, but it seemed that there was a lot of a good amount of ambient noise, etc. That being said, I mean, he took a speech that we've seen him give many times within the state of New York, and he kind of nationalized it. You know, he likes to say, you know, we're not gay, we're not straight, we're one, we're not black, we're not white, we're one. And he kind of took that and said, we're not Texans, we're not Californians, Californians, we are Americans. And he said that in the context of responding to 9/11, which was a big theme as well. So, you know, his speech was part a tribute to his father, who gave a very famous speech at the 1984 Democratic Convention.
Cities, yep.
It was part a look at what New York has done, kind of a greatest hits, so to speak, of his normal speech that he gives around
A lot
New
like
York.
the State of the State we hear in January.
And at the very end of the speech, the last few minutes, he pivoted to Hillary Clinton and spoke very fondly of Hillary Clinton. But I think the thing that was most striking to me is the role that the governor took this year in the Democratic Convention as opposed to 4 years ago when he flew in one day to Charlotte, spoke to the New York delegation, turned around and left. This year he was there for 3 of the 4 days and gave tons of speeches to all sorts of different groups and the New York delegation and on the big stage.
I remember that 2011 year for him was a very big one. He, by all accounts, he passed same-sex marriage, ethics reform at the time, the property tax cap. He had a very good 2011, and you know, the kind of the narrative back then was that he didn't want to seem like he was jumping into the national spotlight too quickly. Whereas now he's kind of the veteran governor, and he's been out there. The other big story this week was him speaking to delegates in the morning. And still, apparently, the feud with New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio continues. Although he talked about building bridges, there seems to be a big break in the bridge with de Blasio.
That hasn't been built yet. So there was a lot of tension, lingering tensions, and they were kind of brought to light. And I think a little bit in the national media too. There's just a discord between the centrist governor from New York, and the super liberal mayor from New York City. There was a situation yesterday where the governor was supposed to address the delegates at the same time as Bill de Blasio, and Bill de Blasio, according to his people, said there were scheduling issues and had to walk out.
He had a forum, apparently.
Right. So I think, you know, we are seeing this play out longer. It's been almost a year now since, you know, initial shots were fired. And we're not seeing the end of it. They're still duking it out. So I don't know, you know, this is supposed to be a time where Democrats are supposed to come together and rally behind one candidate.
The irony there was pretty thick.
Well, and you know, Bill de Blasio also addressed the national convention on the big stage. But you know, you want to talk about Andrew Cuomo at 7:30. Bill de Blasio was about 4:30. And ambient noise, etc. I mean, it was kind of a half-full arena. So
we've got a little under a minute left, John. I want to talk to you, ask you specifically. You were in Cleveland last week. Can you give us, our viewers, kind of a sense of what it was like to be there, what you saw in person? Was it accurately portrayed in the media and on TV at night?
Well, there's, you know, thousands and thousands of reporters there to portray it, and I think it actually generally was pretty accurately portrayed. Logistically, Cleveland was very smooth. You know, when you're in the room, until you get to those last couple of speeches every night, you know, you've got delegates walking all over the floor, talking to each other, doing interviews, posing for photos. I mean, it's kind of wild how much is going on in the actual arena itself, but. You know, particularly with Ted Cruz's speech last week, which made tons of headlines when the crowd turned on him.
For all the wrong reasons.
I mean, you could see in the arena that it started in New York. The New York delegation that was seated right in front of the stage, and you could kind of see it spread from that area to this area to, you know, it slowly spread throughout the arena. But it's just kind of neat to get that perspective and have that bird's eye view for something like that.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Our thanks to John Campbell from Gannett and Josefa Velasquez from Politico New York.
Thank you.
All right, time now for this week's New York Now poll question. We want to know who you think had the better national convention. Did one of the candidates change your mind? Let us know by logging on to our website, nynow.org. Last time we saw you, we asked, do you believe the Republican National Convention was a success? And 57% said yes. Nancy in Center Reach, out on Long Island, watching on WLIW, told us the Trump-Pence ticket presents power and force to get this country back on track. Joe in Galway, not in the same boat. He called it hateful and very embarrassing to the Republican Party. Michael in New York City watching on WNET. Plagiarism, name-calling, and feigned enthusiasm, especially by Rudy Giuliani, made it all too phony. And finally, Warren in Cohoes called it a success. There wasn't a huge amount of commotion, no riots, pretty quiet overall. Thanks to all those who took the time to vote, and we look forward to hearing from you again. The website is nynow.org. While you're browsing, you can check out any of our past programs and follow links to us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter, where our handle is @nynow_PBS. You'll also find a link to the Capitol Confidential blog run by Casey Seiler and his crew. That can also be found at timesunion.com. All right, that will do it for us this week. We leave